world is intricately connected by water. Covering most of the Earth's surface, the ocean is home to an incredibly diverse array of life. From the tiniest plankton to the largest whales, and everything in between. Our ocean is not just a collection of individual species. It is a complex and interconnected network of ecosystems, all working together to maintain the delicate balance of life on our planet. Our impact as humans is great, but so too is our potential for good, to protect and conserve what is left of our natural world. My name is Hannah Douglas. I am a marine scientist and diver, and the 2022 European Our World Underwater Scholar. Over the past 12 months, I've been on a journey of a lifetime. With the support of the Society and Rolex, I have learnt valuable skills to navigate, to study, and connect more people with our world underwater. In less than 365 days, I've completed 250 dives and spent a cumulative of 180 hours underwater, earning 12 new diving qualifications in waters ranging from 30 to -2 degrees Celsius. I have learnt more during this scholarship than I thought possible in a decade of diving without the support of OWUSS. I've developed as a scientific diver and expanded my capabilities to be able to produce meaningful underwater research no matter the location. Underwater, I've learnt to wield a huge variety of instruments, from camera rig to a hacksaw, from an airlift to a cave reel, from a sediment corer to a winch. I've had the opportunity to work on 9 different scientific research projects, observing firsthand the subtle threads that weave the fabric of our natural world together, and how the ocean is often at the heart of this connection. I've learned how the very air we breathe is purified and regulated by the ocean. How no ecosystem exists in isolation, but all are linked by marine currents, the vascular system of our one blue planet. Science communication, the connection between the public and academics, has long been an interest of mine. In the modern world, a central part of this storytelling process is with videography and photography. And for this reason, I was excited to combine my creativity with my scientific interests by learning how to use my camera setup, kindly lent to me by Reef Photo and Video. I was delighted to be able to work on my underwater photography skills with Saeed Rashid in Sulawesi, Indonesia. We focused on composition, lighting, finessing, aperture, shutter speed, and ISO settings. One of my favourite aspects of scuba diving has always been the magnifying quality of water, how everything appears larger or closer underwater than on land. It ties in with one of my favourite fields in science, microscopy. I have found that macro photography is the perfect celebration of this, helping to capture the intricacies of marine life in the field. It fascinates me to watch perfectly adapted creatures thriving in their natural environments. To continue my learning in the underwater world, I headed to Svarmina Zoological Research Station, the base of the Finnish Scientific Diving Academy, to take part in a 6-week occupational scientific diver training course. We began with first aid, O2 administration and neurological assessment training, both on land and out on the water. Each day of the course we covered a new data collection technique, both its theory and implementation. We learnt to use full face masks for an extra level of safety and for in-water communications. During the course, we also built up our independence on the dive boats, navigating the intricacies of the Hanko archipelago. Once we had mastered this and the other data collection techniques, we began developing and conducting our own research projects. We surveyed a seagrass meadow using OWUSS underwater GPS technology. We assessed growth patterns of tiny sessile epifauna on natural as compared to artificial substrates. In our last project, we looked at the impacts of increasing coastal wave action by examining blue mussel size distribution across various depth bands. Each of these projects had their own challenges, but each time we overcame these, there was a huge sense of achievement. My time in Finland was filled with growth and learning, not only due to the well-structured course and practical hands-on experience and the excellent instructors, but also to the magic of the location. I'm excited to have found such a beautiful corner of the world and to have met such passionate fellow science divers. At the end of September, I headed home to Ireland, to County Cork on the southwest coast, to begin my commercial diving training in BIM National Fisheries and Diving College. Commercial diver training is a legal requirement in many countries around the world in order to carry out work such as scientific, engineering, construction, maintenance, media, and even military diving. During the course, we covered everything from knot work and splicing to gas calculations and hyperbaric chamber operation. Every day began with classroom lectures, and then we headed out to the barge, a specially made training setup complete with hyperbaric chamber and diver control station, which mimics a diving platform used for underwater construction work. We learned about specific equipment setup, personnel ratios, and the legislation that governs commercial diving. Our instructors had a wealth of knowledge built up over many years working in the industry.
So when we looked at this, we have our gas supply A and B.
The course was a mentally and physically intense 5 weeks, but I learnt so much and took my first steps into an entirely new diving industry. Life as a scientific diver, underwater camera operator, commercial diver, or even technical diver is likely to bring you to remote places, and often in a limited team. In order to work safely in these remote places, the diving team often must have a diver medic technician among their number. This is a heavy responsibility to take on, but after speaking to divers who work in these remote areas, I understood that having this kind of training in advance could save lives. With this in mind, I travelled to DDRC Healthcare in Plymouth, England, to take part in their diver medic technician training for 2 weeks. We covered everything from advanced airway management, trauma management, intravenous and interstitial fluid infusions, pleural drain insertion, urinary catheter management, and even suturing, where my childhood love of embroidery finally came in useful. Our instructors were commercial diver medics, military paramedics, and their extensive knowledge and experience gave the topics we covered a vivid sense of reality, which I hope has helped prepare me to handle similar circumstances should I ever face them. During my undergraduate studies, one of my central interests was benthic ecology, investigating how life on the seafloor survives and thrives. Naturally, being restricted to shallow areas puts a limiting factor on any research that I can conduct. I needed to be able to go deeper, and for this reason I decided to pursue technical diving education. Heading to Spain, I met Ricardo Constantino and began GUE fundamentals training, where I learnt to rethink my buoyancy and trim within the mindset of technical diving. I changed my equipment setup and started diving with a long hose and twin set. The course challenged me, but I was delighted to complete it with a tech pass. After this, I headed further into the Mediterranean, to Malta, the base of TechWise Dive Centre, to take the PADI Tech Deep and Diver Propulsion Vehicle courses. I delved into decompression diving, finessing my twin set procedures, and learning to dive with several extra stages and gas mixtures. It was exciting to sense the possibilities for my future underwater career extend as we added more depth with each and every dive. I also learned how to manage several cylinders while acting as a safety diver for other tech divers. Never having used one before, I flooded my mask repeatedly by grinning at the beginning of the Diver Propulsion Vehicle course. It was awesome fun. And I learnt how well they can be used for larger scale surveys and even marine rubbish retrieval. I'm delighted to have begun my journey into technical diving, opening up my range for research, both in terms of depth and distance. Having experienced so many different types of external diving equipment configurations, it felt challenging but also strangely liberating to consider how it might be to dive with none whatsoever. Freediving is a wonderful skill to have when what is being studied is only a few meters underwater or for pelagic fauna that passes quickly. I began my freediving journey this year with Adam Sellers in Indonesia. On a personal level, I found that the course directly linked with some of my own experience with yogic breathing. Focusing the mind and calmly controlling the breath, you discover a connection between the body and the breath that is only felt when you slow down and listen. I enjoyed my introduction to freediving so much that I was thrilled when offered the opportunity to further my training with Kurt Crack and my fellow 2022 scholars in the Cayman Islands. We learnt so much about the physiology of freediving and mechanics of breath retention. Kirk helped us each reach our own peak performance. This experience has secured in me a deep love of freediving. I'm excited to continue my personal development and who knows, maybe someday go on to compete in this arena. During my scholarship year, I was hoping to learn dive skills that would enable me to work in a wide range of ecosystems and habitats. Following this interest, I travelled to the cenotes of Mexico and undertook my GUE Cave 1 course with Annika Pearson. The course was very challenging, and it changed me as a diver for the better. There is something about feeling your way around a cave underwater, practicing for a zero visibility and out of air scenario that really makes you appreciate your dive buddies and your instructor's training. I learned about how cave systems act like the circulative veins of the earth, and I became fascinated by their ecology after learning how it might be possible to use the mapping of cave systems to install inland protected areas due to their direct connection with the ocean. During my year, I learned so much through formal courses, but I also wanted to put my training into practice and work with researchers in the field. In Chile, I worked with the Estación Costera de Investigaciones Marinas, whose focus is mesophotic reef ecology and investigating the connections between deep reefs and shallow intertidal reefs. I headed out with their dive team for some deep reef surveying and to deploy their BRUVs, baited remote underwater video systems. With another research group at the station, I took part in a series of dives to collect shallow acoustic monitoring devices with data on tagged reef fish, with a view to assessing, again, the connectivity between shallow and deep reefs. After these projects, I headed to the beautiful Falkland Islands. I joined a research team from the South Atlantic Environmental Research Institute, along with my fellow scholar Millie. We helped them to assess the impact of soil erosion caused by agriculture on the benthic ecology of the remote Hummock Island in the far west of the Falklands. Overgrazing of the peatlands on these islands has largely destroyed much of the native grasses, allowing the peat to dry out and blow away in the wind. It was striking to see the difference in species richness between areas where peat dust was deposited and those where it wasn't. We conducted multiple surveying dives every day and also deployed bruvs and an ROV. While we were there, we were also tasked with helping to create a catalogue of images for a new underwater field guide for Hummock Island and King George Bay for the Antarctic Research Trust. I loved the opportunity to get to focus on some macro photography again. Although some locals were less impressed with being photographed than others. In February, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to join the Antarctic Climate Epic 2023 expedition with a particular hero of mine, Dr. Sylvia Earle. The aim of the expedition was to create a list of resolutions that could help mitigate the climate crisis, but also to facilitate several groups of researchers conducting science in Antarctica, and lastly, to create a series of images and a short film about Antarctica in 2023 and why we should all care about what happens there. I worked with the cetacean team, monitoring the local whales and their feeding behaviours. Their research was multifaceted, looking to record as much data on the whales we passed as possible. "106 whales were seen, and several feeding hotspots were recorded. The team used various data collection techniques such as tagging and drones, and even underwater acoustic surveys. I also joined the microplastic research team, whose aim was to run a series of Newston net trawls in areas where whales were known to be feeding. Sadly, once back on the ship, each sample collected was found to contain microplastics. It's not known what the long-term impact of this will be on marine life in Antarctica. After all, we're only just beginning to understand how damaging micro and nanoplastics are to our own health. From other researchers and scientists on board the vessel, I also learned about the perilous state of the Thwaites Glacier, the high number of penguin chicks being born too late in the season to survive, and the increasing pressure on wildlife to compete with the industrial krill fishing. All of which may seem like far off and distant issues, not in our backyard, but it became clear to me how they are all issues intimately connected with how we live our daily lives. Although I hugely enjoyed the experience and feel remarkably blessed to have had the opportunity to witness this part of the world firsthand, I left Antarctica resolved to try and find ways to help improve the state of what might appear to be one of the most hostile places on Earth, but is actually one of the most fragile. The goals for my year were threefold. First, to improve my diving skills so that I could work as a scientist underwater in as many conditions as possible. Second, to improve my science communication skills so that my passion might be used to develop understanding in others. And thirdly, to study with researchers in the field and contribute to the marine science community through hands-on work. I'm delighted to say that because of the support and kindness of hundreds of incredible people, I've achieved my dreams this year. My eyes have been opened to the possibilities and new directions within the world of marine science, and I feel reinvigorated in my passion for working towards increasing global awareness and legislation for the conservation of our connected ocean. With just 2 weeks left of my scholarship, I travelled to England for one last course that, at the beginning of my year, I hadn't felt ready for. But after a year of dive training, I finally felt prepared to take the next step in my technical diving journey: rebreathers. From a research perspective as a diver, and even a free diver, the longer you can stay underwater and the deeper you can go, the more broad and encompassing your work can become. I felt like I was learning to dive all over again, which I loved doing the first time. I adored the sensation of diving a closed circuit without noise or bubbles underwater, and was humbled to get to work with the incredible Mark Powell. This training will be useful in the future, as I'm delighted to say that after this incredible journey, I've been offered to attend an International Masters in Marine Biological Resources, during which I'm planning to set up my own research projects using technical diving, while also taking further courses in global marine policy and governance, science communication, and public engagement. I'm delighted to be starting this next chapter after such an incredible year of growth and learning. I think, however, by far the most precious thing that I've been gifted this year are new friendships formed with those who have also committed their lives to championing the ocean. To those who this year have given me so much, I am forever grateful for your kindness, belief, and friendship. In the face of everything, you give me hope. How blessed I am to have been connected by the ocean to so many amazing people.